Hello. Hi, Karen. I see you there. Hello there. Happy Saturday. Karen, we still have like 6 inches of snow. Do you have any up there? Fabulous. Thank you so much, Karen. The secret is a new hair dryer. We're not getting any more snow today. We're getting rain, which is good. It'll wash away the snow. I'm not a big fan of snow. Say hi as you're coming in so I know you're here. I see a couple of you. Hi, Dan. Hi, Bonnie. I see you too. I'm going to pull this table closer to me because there we go. All right, so we have a couple of you in here. So hi, Betsy. I am going to get started. So, happy January 19th, which is Caregivers Awareness Day, Support Day. So those of you I don't know, or don't know me, I am Jamie. I am one of the founders of Aortic Hope and a board member of Aortic Hope. I am not a dissection survivor. I am not an aneurysm survivor. My aorta is completely healthy, but I am the caregiver for actually 2 people with aortic disease. You may know my husband from the page, Bill. He is also a board member of Aortic Hope. He has Marfan Syndrome, as does our oldest daughter, our teenage daughter. So since 2003, Bill has survived, I've got to kind of do this from memory, a type B dissection, 2 life-threatening rounds of infection, requiring open heart surgeries and repairs, placement of a pacemaker, a couple detached retinas thrown in there for a good Marfan measure, multiple aortic repairs, a hernia surgery that went wrong and created a life-threatening internal bleeding situation. I'm pretty sure I missed something in there, but you get the idea. It's been a very long 15 years medically for Bill. And while all of that is very important, and I'm always happy to answer questions about those situations, and Bill is too, when it comes to Marfan or just general care through those situations. I'm going to focus on the caregivers in our group and the experience that we as caregivers, the spouses, the parents, the kids, the neighbors, the friends go through during these crises and traumas. And talk about our experiences. And my goal is I wrote down 7 different things that have helped me in the last 15 years, what I've learned, sometimes the hard way, of how to get through these situations. So I'm going to share my tips and strategies. Ask me questions. I can see you guys. Hi, Lisa. No, not Bill Lawrence. Bill Barnhart. So, hi, Nicole. Let's see. Yes, this Marfan stuff is tough. Hang in there. There's really good resources. So I'm happy to share some with you as well. So, all right. So my first soul tip. So back in 2003, we were dating. We weren't even yet engaged yet. And Bill was actually covering a shift of mine at work because we used to work together. I left that job and he was covering a shift for me and felt intense pain. And what we know now, it was the dissection. So he's in pain, and the doctor in the ER kept saying, oh, it's kidney stones, it's kidney stones, here's some pain medication, you're fine, it's going to be kidney stones, they'll pass. I knew very little about Marfan syndrome at that point. Bill knew more, having grown up with it. He knew about his Marfan when he was a child, and at this point he was in his late 20s. He was 29 when he dissected. But we kept saying he has Marfan syndrome. He has Marfan syndrome. This doesn't feel like kidney stones. And finally, the attending doctor in this emergency room came in and put him in a CAT scan just to be sure and be safe. And she said, I very clearly remember her saying, anyone with Marfan syndrome should just go into a CAT scan just to check that off the list. Okay. 45 minutes after she said that, he was on a helicopter to a Trauma 1 hospital, which out here, we're in Northern Virginia, outside of D.C., and the hospital that he was at was probably only about 12 miles from the Trauma 1, but the helicopter was necessary. So he survived that. They did not do that. They did not do a surgical repair that time. They were able to medically manage it for a couple years. But the lesson here is to keep advocating and keep speaking up and keep saying, no, this doesn't feel right. It wasn't kidney stones. It wasn't kidney stones. We kept telling them that. And just keep telling every doctor that walks in the room the same thing. And eventually somebody will hear you. So just keep that up. We've also, my friends and family laugh, having 2 people in this house with Marfan syndrome. We spend a lot of time in our local ER with, weird aches and pains and things because we constantly have to check off aortic situations. So with my husband and with the teenage daughter, and teenage daughters have their own set of fun, just generally being a teenager, and those aches and pains, add that to the Marfan things, and anytime there's chest pain or aches, off to the ER we go. And so we are really good at using the right keywords to get past the waiting room, sometimes past triage and directly into a room with a doctor. So keep that in mind. Walk in and say things like aorta, say things like, if you do have Marfan syndrome, say Marfan syndrome and history of aortic challenges. That has proven to be very useful for all of us. I don't like waiting in waiting rooms. The second thing, during these crises, as the caregiver, when Bill is in, hi Bill, look, Bill just joined us. We're going to talk about him, and all he can do is type questions. It's quite entertaining for me. When we're in the hospital in the middle of these crisis moments, there's sometimes as the caregiver, you want to ask questions. You want to know why things are happening. You want to know the details of, well, why, doctor, are you suggesting this plan? And sometimes you need to ask those questions, but sometimes in the middle of the crisis, you're not calm enough to hear. The doctor isn't equipped to give the amount of time needed to really answer detailed questions. One of these emergencies, one of these infections, required almost 24 hours of me making constant, some life-saving decisions for Bill, because he was unable to make any decision. He actually wasn't even awake for half of it. And while I wanted to find out, why is this happening? What is this doing? What does this mean? In those particular high stress moments, it wasn't a good time. It just simply wasn't a good time. The doctors need to be treating Bill, not describing to me what every medication was for and why they were administering it and what decisions they thought. And so I had to trust the hospital we were in, the doctors in front of me, and most importantly, I had to trust the conversations that Bill and I had for many, many years about how he would make decisions. It is not a fun conversation to have with your spouse, your parent, your child, your friend, your neighbor, whoever it is you're caring for, but know what they would want, and know how they would make that decision for themselves, and where their line, if they have a DNR, where is the line for them? That knowledge helped make decisions. So know that, and have that ready, that knowledge in your head ready, and have it printed too, because written documentation is powerful in a hospital. Afterwards, ask your 10,000 questions. As soon as Bill, this was one of the infections, and he had to go into, I had to sign it was like a movie. I tell people all the time, it was like a movie. I signed a order to put him in the OR with this trauma doctor, and she had said to me, I'm going to open him up, and I have no idea what I'm looking for, but he's bleeding, and I have to stop it. And I don't know what surgery I'm going to do, but I've got to do something. And I signed a piece of paper, and that's the only knowledge I had about what was going to happen to him. And so in the 4 hours we waited to see him, to see if he came out of that OR, I wrote down questions. I had a million questions. And the next morning I got them answered. But having those questions answered before putting him in the OR was going to prolong his situation and possibly change the outcome. And so just decide what questions are immediate need and what can wait for follow-up information, and keep a notebook with you. Which leads me to my next one, is keeping notes. It's a whole heck of a lot easier now. Now that we have, mini computers in our hands that fit in our pocket. But keeping a notebook. I have a notebook in my purse. Karen knows me, in the Aortic Hope group knows me enough that I write notes and I journal and things like that. But keep a notebook with you in these situations, and jot down notes, because you're going to forget them, because something else happens an hour later and you forgot what the question was you had 2 hours ago. So just keep a journal, keep a note. Anytime we leave a hospital after a massive issue, I ask and request for the entire medical report. The situation, I'm going to allude to the same situation again, where I was making these decisions for 24 hours for him. He was unconscious. He was dying from an internal bleed. I have 2 boxes full of every single report from the beginning to the end of that situation. Because you forget some of the things that happened. Sometimes you don't want to remember them. You don't have to read the report. Just get it, because sometime you may need it. During the situation, my biggest piece of advice when you're the caregiver during the trauma and during the crisis and even during the recovery, is get a binder. Go to Target or Staples or whatever. I used to use really pretty binders because it wasn't a really pretty situation. So if I used a pretty binder, it made me feel better. Silly things like that, they matter. They do add up for you as a caregiver. So get a binder, get some dividers, print out things. And I had a binder that had my own personal notes. I would take notes about what Bill was saying. I would keep track of, hey, this medication didn't make him feel good. It helped the pain, but it didn't help this. Any care instructions that the nurses are giving you, make the nurses your best friends. That is the key to survival in a hospital. The nurses are your best friends. Bring them coffee, bring them candy, cookies. I brought nurses Jell-O shots. It goes a long way. But keep that binder, and the first page of that binder should be a piece of paper that has contact information for every single person involved in the situation. Every doctor, every family member who can provide any kind of information, and that binder should be available to anyone who needs to pick it up and help. I carried it everywhere with me. So biggest piece of advice to survive is get a binder. So even following up on that, so my next thing is, at home we have 3 children who are now 14, 7, and 5. During one of these biggest emergencies, I was 8 months pregnant with our middle child. Most of these situations, I don't know if we were lucky or that's even a word that we should use in this, but they happened during the school year. So we had daycare and we had school hours kind of covered with care for the oldest one. So when I was in the hospital, it was fairly easy. They were at school, they were at daycare. When I was pregnant, I was literally down the hall from the maternity ward. So if something happened with me, I could, shuffle myself down the hallway. But when Bill gets home after surgeries is when it gets hardest for me. There's no doctor. There's no team of nurses. There's no button that I get to push that makes somebody run in the room and ask me what I need, right? That button is wonderful. But there's not one at home, because the other end of the button of the I need help is me. And so I don't have a button that goes to anybody else. So some of the things I've learned is I get home and I become like the master manager of all. And it's hard, but we have learned over the years. Calendar. A calendar is the most important thing that you can have. We use a shared calendar app on our phones. We still use it. The teenager has it on her phone now, and that is how our life functions here even today. If you guys want a recommendation on the calendar app, we use Cozy, but there's a whole bunch of them. But we love it. Everything, every schedule for every kid, every person in the house. You have a dog, put the vet schedule on there. Daycare, school routines, medication times and routines, doctor appointments, everything should be on that calendar. Because when someone says to you, how can I help? What do you have going on today? You are not going to remember. Do not rely on your memory. Use that calendar for everything and share it with everybody. Ours is color-coded by person in our house, and so I can look at it and say, wow, there's 7 things under my color today. And I know right away I need to rework that day. This is one of the hardest things I've learned, because when you're the caregiver, there's a little bit of control. I don't know if any of you are also, but I'm a little bit of a type A, and I need to control everything. And so the hardest thing, but most important thing, is make a list of things that your patient can do. There are things that they can do. No, they cannot take the trash out for the first couple weeks, but they can, make some phone calls sitting in their chair. They can follow up with some of those things. Nowadays there's, one of my tips is going to be asking for help. You know what they can do? They can sit with a laptop and click off things on the Walmart grocery pickup list. They can do those things. Allow them to. I mentioned that I was 8 months pregnant with one of the infections, and Bill came home, and about 3 weeks later, I went and I had a baby. And I came home, and I had, at that time, a 7-year-old daughter, a newborn baby boy, and a husband who had a wound vac and had just come out of a life-threatening infection surgery for weeks in the hospital. And so it was not a calm situation here in the house. And Bill couldn't go upstairs and get the baby when the baby cried. Bill couldn't get up in the middle of the night with the baby. Bill couldn't walk up the stairs. But what he could do was sit in the lazy boy recliner with a baby cradled in his arm and a bottle in the baby's mouth. And so during the day, Bill did probably 90% of the feedings. I handed him a baby, I handed him a bottle, and I walked into the kitchen and ate my lunch without a baby on my hip or in my arm. And, I think that it helped with Bill and our son bond when he was a newborn. It gave me a 10-minute break every couple hours, and it gave Bill something that he could do that was helpful and meaningful. And I know I've heard Bill, and I've heard Karen, and I've heard Greg, and I've heard Betsy. I've heard everybody say that feeling useless is so hard during recovery. And so find some things your patient can do to help you out. Even the little things, they do really matter. Ask for help, not just for your patient, but when I say that, for you. Those first couple weeks are really hard, and you can't really get out of the house because your patient can't do anything for themselves. But as they can, let your neighbors bring you dinner. You know what? Frozen lasagna in the oven is perfectly fine. It's absolutely wonderful. Sometimes cereal for dinner, not a problem. It's kind of my favorite. Ask for help. Let your friends come over and just sit and hang out with you for an hour, just so you can talk about something else, or not talk about anything, and your friends can do your dishes. Allow those things to happen. I used to, when friends came over, I used to say, it's not that I don't love you. It's not that I don't super enjoy your company. But right now, what I really want to do is take a shower with the door closed by myself. And my friends used to come over and they would sit with Bill and watch TV, and I would disappear. And I would take a shower. I would dry my hair. I might even put on real clothes, not just leggings and a t-shirt. So, allow those things to happen, because your own mental health is so, so important when you're caring for someone who has a physical need of care. I found the hardest thing was when someone said, I really want to help, let me know what you need. In those moments, I don't know what I need. I know what I need about 5 minutes after I needed it. So one thing over time, we figured out what it is that is helpful for us. And so as you figure those out, again, that notebook, jot it down. These things are helpful. Dinners are helpful. I used to write down the errands that I needed to run. And if I knew my friend was going to Target, I'd be like, hey, I'll give you $20 when you get here, but I really need milk and eggs and this. Or there was one time I was like, I ran out of foundation. Can you go pick up my foundation? It's silly and stupid, but it got it off my list, right? And so, ask for help for those things. And your friends will love to do it. They want to help you. It's hard sometimes to figure out how to help. And so just kind of keep a list of things that are helpful, errands you need to run. And when someone says, how can I help you? You can say, oh, hey, hold on. Number 4 on my list, you can help me with that. My mom, we're really blessed to live close to my parents. And so my mom used to come and fill our freezer with weeks of frozen meals. And we're very lucky that we have that. See if your friends like to cook. If they do, ask them to make you some frozen meals. If not, those grocery delivery services and the send me my meals, sign up for it. It's like pulling up in front of Walmart and having them put the groceries in your trunk, and you don't even have to get out of the car, is literally the best thing that has ever happened. Ever. For any kind of working family, any kind of caregiving, it is amazing. It is amazing. It is life-changing. Use it. So I hate calling them patients, because you're not a doctor, you're a caregiver, you're a spouse, you're a neighbor, you're a friend, but as that patient is getting better, allow them to get better. I'm totally a type A, and I'm totally a control freak. But let them get better, and as they can, let them help. The first step to Bill kind of getting back to things was, okay, can you get up, walk from the family room to the kitchen, and make yourself a sandwich? If all the stuff is in the kitchen, can you do that and eat it and put your dish in the sink? That's it. And that might take 3 weeks. But once he could do that, I knew that I could go to the grocery store, because if he got hungry, he could do that for himself. So kind of creating baby steps, creating some baby steps to get better, and allowing them to get better. It's hard to let go, because there's a fear. There's a fear that, what if it happens again? What if they're not quite strong enough? It's terrifying as a caregiver, and I know it's terrifying as a patient, but it is terrifying as a caregiver. Allow baby steps, and then let go once they've checked off those things, because you need to let go of being the primary caregiver and allowing them to care for themselves a bit, so that you can now start caring for yourself, because we haven't even started talking about that, because so far we're just talking about the crisis, when the caregiver is kind of on the side burner a lot of it. So that's what we're going to talk about now is it is so important to talk about your own experience as a caregiver. I will own that I did not do a good job of that for a very, very, very long time. I felt guilty for having my own experience, because I'm not the one who was in the OR. I'm not the one who had to be in the helicopter. None of the physical stuff happened to me. But I did have my own emotional experience with each surgery and each aortic situation, and still do every time I have to take our 14-year-old to the ER to make sure that her pains aren't dissection pains. And every time we go to Hopkins for our annual visit with the surgeon of, oh God, when's he going to tell us it's time again? So, I have my own experience, and I was really bad about talking about it for a very long time. So that we need to we just all need to break through that, because, hi Greg, I see you. It's really important that we take care of ourselves, because like the flight attendants will tell you, you don't put your, you put your own mask on before you put the mask on of your child or your co-passenger. If we're not taking care of ourselves, we're not going to be good caregivers, should we need to be again, or continue to be. So talk about it. Talk about it with a friend, talk about it with a therapist. I feel most guilty talking about it, actually to other aortic patients, because, again, they had the physical experience, and I'm just talking about the total mental and emotional exhaustion that they also felt. But I felt it without a scar down my chest. It's difficult, which is why, which kind of brings us to why we started Aortic Hope, like almost 2 years ago now, Karen. Crazy. That it was important to me that caregivers have a place to talk to each other without the guilt of feeling sad, tired. I can't tell you how many times I just felt tired. I still feel tired. But that the guilt of feeling tired was so overwhelming that I just ignored my tired. So, talk to somebody. I like to write. I'm a journaler. I like to write. I think it was one of those things growing up that when I was mad or whatever, I would just write down things, and then when I was really angry, and then I would tear it all up and get all the energy out and then throw it away. Because my mom did tell me one time, never write down something you don't want everyone to see. But as an adult, get a journal, write it out. Charlotte, I totally get, you still don't want to talk about it. There are some things about some of our emergencies and our surgeries that I still don't like to talk about. I tell Bill a lot that there are still things that I have not in detail told him happened, or conversations about decisions that I had to talk through that I haven't told him. Some of those things they're not necessary for him to know, or maybe I'm not ready to talk about it. It's okay. But even if you're talking to yourself about it, again, get a journal, write it out. It's okay to feel sad and tired. And you know what? It's also okay as a caregiver. It's also okay to be mad and to be a little bit pissed off that this is happening, and that you're in this role that you didn't know that you were going to ever have to be in. It is okay to be mad about that. It is okay to be sad. It is okay to be tired. It is okay to be all of those things. And it's okay to tell people that you feel that way. Not easy, but it's okay. And so that's, again, what Aortic Hope is for. We have a caregivers only group, and that's where you can go and just say all of that, and we get it, because we've all been there. We all feel it. So that is a little bit about our story, about me, about my tips. Is it's an experience that we as caregivers maybe are not having physically. Some of us are. Some of us are both a patient and a caregiver. But from a caregiver standpoint, that we are having this experience as well, and we continue to have this experience every single time the blood pressure is higher than we like it. I worry every time Bill or our daughter goes to the cardiologist. I worry that it's going to be, there's been growth here, there's been growth there. Status quo is my favorite medical update after an appointment. Status quo is where I like to live. So that is my story. I'm happy always to talk to anybody, to any caregiver about about what's going on. I'm happy to listen. If you just need someone to listen who gets it, I get it. So please, reach out. So I'm going to go scroll through all these comments because I know there's some like questions and some comments, and I want to answer all of them. And so if you have anything else, throw a question in there. Nicole, if you're still here, you had said they were testing you for Marfan Syndrome. So we are pretty involved. My daughter's actually mostly involved with Marfan Foundation. My daughter's actually on the teen council for Marfan Foundation, and has her own little mini nonprofit group that she started doing backpacks, and she calls it Marfan Friends, and she sends them to Marfan kids who are in the hospital or going through a surgery or a procedure. So the Marfan stuff is really tough. And it's really scary. And so if you ever want to talk about it, let me know, let my husband know. We're always happy to talk about it and share some knowledge and some contacts and some resources with you. But, the scariest part's the diagnosis and kind of getting your treatment plan, but you can live a full life with Marfan syndrome. Just take care of yourself. That's my one overall piece of advice. And the Marfan community is a pretty cool, tight-knit community. So reach out. Lisa, Karen, she could be your sister. I know, right? How fun would that household be? Angie, yes. Oh my gosh, stressed. We are stressed. We are. We are, because someone's got to keep the house going and the regular life going while we're recovering from these tragic surgeries and situations. And so, again, talk, reach out. Lisa, yes, we were very lucky that I was able to stay home during the recoveries. I think I stayed home. The one when I had the baby, I was on maternity leave, so that kind of was helpful. Actually, my maternity leave started early. My family leave started early when Bill had the surgery, and then so I was able to stay home for quite a while on that one, because it coupled with the delivery of our son. But the other times I usually stayed home, 100% home, for usually about 4 weeks, and then I would go back to work part-time. I'm an event planner and an association executive, so a lot of my work can be done remotely, and that's also pretty helpful, that I can do some work from home. Karen's husband, Joe. Hi, Joe, if you're watching. Joe often says, you know what it's like to be chronically ill, but you don't know what it's like to care for someone who is chronically ill. Karen's asking, what can we, the patient, do to make life a little easier for our caregivers? God, that's a really hard question. It's a really hard question because my caregiver guilt trumps how I want to answer it. Because I don't want the person I'm taking care of or helping to care for to have to worry about me because they need to worry about their physical stuff. And so round and round the circle we go with caregiver's guilt. But one of the things that Bill and I have learned is that, again, as Bill got better, giving him things to do that he could do and allowing him to do those, and him speaking up and saying, I feel good enough to do this, I feel good enough to do that, and kind of taking that responsibility a little bit was helpful. Finding things that they could do and doing those, and being open to the idea that your caregiver needs a break, emotionally and physically, and maybe suggesting a friend come over and hang out, and maybe suggesting the caregiver go somewhere else for an hour while your friend's there. But just allowing that emotional response from your caregiver goes a long way. I hope that helps. Angie, oh, don't cry. But yes, it's good to relate to other caregivers. It really is. Chelsea, my husband. Yeah. Yeah. Chelsea, yes, your husband, you're going through the physical pain. Your husband's going through a different kind of pain. Yeah, and it's hard. So just keep talking and keep allowing the caregivers to feel and have these emotions, and stay organized. Ask the questions. Be a team. Make sure that you're both aware of what's going on. I laugh all the time that my next career is going to be a post-op nurse. Because I've done it so many times that I'm going to be a recovery nurse one day, and I can get Bill out of an open heart surgery and back to work in usually about 4.5 months. He can go back to work. So that's kind of my track record. And if it's cool that I have one, that's my average. I don't know if it's cool that I have one or not, but we've made it through, and and we've grown, and our kids have grown, and that's where we are. So please, caregivers, use our caregivers only support group. It's there for all of us to talk openly and freely. It's not that we don't want the patients in there. We need you, but it's our safe space. So please post in there. I'm always willing and happy to answer messages. You can message me directly if you want. That's what we started Aortic Hope for, is for this. And so I hope that you all learn something. I hope that you caregivers all feel maybe a little less alone in your feelings. I hope maybe you learned something. Angie, I think, Karen, help me out with this. I think we just called it the Aortic Hope Caregivers Only group. So as I'm upstairs, guys, hiding in my bedroom to do this live, because, well, we have 3 kids and a dog, and there's snow outside, so we're all stuck in the house. And so Bill has just asked me if I would, little off topic, but the patient would also like to support the caregiver. Would I like peanut butter and jelly, grilled cheese, or pasta for lunch? With that, Karen has posted the Aortic Hope Caregiver Only private forum is our group. And with that, I think I will go downstairs and have a grilled cheese with the 2 patients and 2 children that live in my house. Again, anybody reach out to me, and have a wonderful day. It's snowing here. Well, it's wintry weather here in DC area. So if you have snow, have fun. Be careful. No shoveling for the patients. Also, side note, the caregiver has to do all the shoveling when it snows in these wintry parts. And so I'll shovel, but I'm going to need like a hot chocolate, maybe with some additives of Bailey's or such when I come in from shoveling. So caregivers, make some deals like that, because, have a little fun too. All right. Love you all. Go off and do good things. Mwah. I'll see you in the groups. Bye.